There you go.
Recording in progress.
So we got Donna, and we got Carl. And I'm gonna sign it. We don't get him.
Hello.
Yeah, so I guess the link is in words correct, but when you click on the link, like most of us do, it went to the old BOS one, so duly noted. We don't have to do too many more of these Zooms.
No,
So
we're
Steve-
we're getting close. I think.
I think we have a quorum now.
And you're recording too right now.
Fantastic. So, told me that, so I can change back to PG-13. Okay, I'm gonna call the meeting to order at 5:16. We've got Cindy here, myself, Carl on Zoom. Steve should be calling into Zoom soon, Donna. We got our illustrious town manager, Joe Roach. And then special guest as always, Mark Beauregard. So, okay. Let's dive in. I got some comments text to me from select person Sam White today.
Okay.
She's out of town, but she wanted to continue to be supportive by providing feedback.
Excellent.
I think she's I appreciate that she's taken the time to do that.
What'd you say, Chris?
Okay, some things to think about.
What section?
This is just some general comments that came
Okay.
back from what she read that we gave her on the economy. To be the economy one we sent, the draft.
Yeah.
We have the most bars and restaurants per capita in the country, I would imagine. Some fun research should be done there and quite a fact for Rangeley. We might want to talk about that. It's true. I don't think there's that many establishments for 800 citizens really anywhere. I mean, she did want to comment that our slow months are a time for us to catch up and regroup, lick our wounds and pick ourselves back up and get ready for the next huge wave of people. Much about the same comments that Mark talked about at the last meeting. I'm not sure we need to be worrying about bringing in more tourists. Our infrastructure can't handle it as it is. We are almost at a tipping point. We don't have the staff to maintain busy all the time. Slow is good. Like I've said, our quality of life is the most important. Having more year-round residents would help with the shoulder seasons. Worrying about our costs and energy in the slow months is also important. Creating new business opportunities in Rangeley and helping to keep our residents from moving would be adding retirement communities, long-term care, residential, and pharmacy. All stuff all good stuff. I kind of covered some of that the last time. I think if we decide to do our quality of life or wellness section, we can probably dive a little more deep into that. But I think Sam's point is that what will stabilize for some of these businesses is not 12 months a year full-on tourism, as we felt a bit of that post the first, I'd say not the first summer of COVID, but the second year of COVID. There was no break for anybody, and we saw people really break down.
I think we lost a couple businesses because of it. You know, there wasn't enough help.
Yeah,
And
not everyone can, in the housing, a lot of it comes back to housing. Not every business owner can afford to build
Right.
duplexes for their
That's right.
employees and apartment houses and that. So I think,
I agree. I think the whole focus to get more people in here is misguided. It's, you know, we already have Saddleback doing that. We already have the chamber actively doing that. That isn't anything the town of Rangeley it need not be our business to do that. I mean, we've got, you know, as far as making Rangeley safe to walk, safe to park, improving what we can. I think we've done a great job.
yeah, I think her point about the infrastructure is kind of busting at the seams. We've seen that with things. I mean, I know we've now rebuilt the police force, but we've added a lot to our fire department.
Yep.
Now, we've gone from one part-time employee when I moved here in 2008, Rudy, to now of 3 full-time employees.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, and certain things I think are helping with different things. Like I know I was talking to Harold, who does the ambulance stuff, and now that the ski patrol director at Saddleback, Michelle, she's a head ER nurse.
Mm-hmm.
So she's able to make a lot more determinations.
Yeah.
So that the ambulance isn't going up there for every willy-nilly thing. And I think that has helped. Again, on stressing our resources. We've seen that. You know, we saw, I think, some good planning and some good education. You know, snowmobile clubs moving in the direction with the safety kiosk and some other things to try to encourage people to stay in control. I mean, if you heard the scandal like I did this weekend, I mean, I think that's more of a thing of low snow.
Yes, dangerous.
More accidents happen when there's less snow, both on the mountain and on the trails. So it's not much we can do with that part, but I don't disagree with Sam's comments about, you know, let's look at growing our core year-round residents.
Mhm.
You know, tourists are great, but maybe our campaign should be more of, you know, come visit, and if you like it, please stay. Or some, you know, that effect. I think we've slowly had people make that change, but I think if you went around, we looked over the past 5 or 10 years at people that were visitors who eventually moved here to retire, and we took some testimonials and use that to promote with, I think it might change a little bit of the feel. I mean, it's pretty clear from the, you know, true, it was an unusually written request, the chamber this past year, but it did get voted down on spending money on tourism.
Right.
And I think, you talk to the average Rangeley resident, when you're go to get your mail, used to be you had a couple weeks in July and a week in August and February vacation week and Christmas week. It was about the 4 times you had to look 2 or 3 times before you crossed the road. Now it's
Mhm.
half the year. So,
Chris, that was my take from the meeting last night too. I was at the meeting and we were really focused on that section of the economy that talked about the bad weather days and the shoulder seasons. And yeah, it was brought up that we need those shoulder seasons for other things. So I reworked that section. I can put it up, and I sent it off to Joe. And Joe, did you send it to the selectmen?
Today, no, I did not. I didn't have time to get to that today. I will do it after this meeting.
well, let's talk about, there's anything else we want to tweak, and then maybe send that. So
Well,
you were
and
at the
so-
select board meeting last night?
I was there, yeah. Well, yeah, I zoomed in.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's exactly,
I didn't
you
do
know,
it.
those are the comments that I had. So, you know, so when I oh, you did you just put up the ability to share there? Let me oh, can you turn sharing on, Joe?
Steve made it in. Good. Hi, Steve.
Hey, Steve.
So can you see this?
No, we can't read anything on there. It's
Oh,
impossible.
you can? Okay. Anyways, what I did was I just said shoulder seasons are challenging and necessary. On one hand, they mean a lower level of business while still trying to meet all the fixed cost. I'm abbreviating. On the other hand, there are time to do necessary repairs and upgrades for the next busy season. I didn't include anything about getting more sleep, but and then and then trying to balance that out with the meeting that we had with all the business owners, and they talked about the need for more shoulder season events. And so what I finished that with is that maybe a coordinated effort to schedule more events, but leaving a specific time, such as late April and early May, event free. And then talked about the bad weather days. And that's a summer and winter issue is the way I see that. And acknowledge that there is a bowling alley, there is a movie theater, and there is shopping, and that maybe some pop-up events could happen. And then just some of the other things that people had talked about other businesses is really, I think it's, nobody says anybody has to do them, but if anyone, when I used to sit in that chair, people would come in the planning chair, people would come in to me and say, well, what does the town want? And I'd say, well, read the plan. That's what the town wants. And so then it's in there, and it talks about things like doing, coordinating some, have lunch and a discount at the logging museum or something like that. It's got nothing to do with the town, but just some thoughts on that. And so that could stay or that could go. But anyways, that will be.
What do we, I guess I'm trying to figure out why we even need to comment
Yeah,
on this. Why wouldn't we redact it and stay out of that?
I think
Whole thing.
I think we need to redact it and stay out of it. We're not event planners.
Right, and so I think,
We've got a lot of nonprofits that that put the feelers out. I
Right.
mean, RFA has got stuff going on year round.
yeah, I mean, I think you talk to one business, they're like, yeah, we'd love to have stuff 12 times a year. We talk to another business, they don't. And we've been talking about, as we're doing this plan, that we want to cast as wide a net as possible and avoid controversy. So I think,
I think the town naturally supports, we've got the parks. We naturally support events, with free use of the town parks for nonprofit events.
right, yeah, and I don't think I think we should just caution getting into saying we need more of this
I
and we
don't
need less of
think,
that.
yeah, I think that's.
And I just think we just take that out and
Yeah.
say, rather just talk about and say, Rangeley's economy is primarily driven from the winter season economy and the summer season economy, and not really get into the shoulder season. Cause I think it just sets us up for controversial issues that we don't even need to go to.
Well, it's like, we need to we need to expand our Parks and Rec service because the comprehensive plan says that we need more shoulder season activities. It's like, no, it's just not. That's how it could be interpreted.
Yeah, Donna, are you opposed to redacting that?
Well, what I would like to do is send you out the synopsis of the meeting with the business owners. That was held, I think it was back in September. And they talked, a lot of the focus of that meeting was about the shoulder seasons and about more indoor events. And so the only reason I don't want to redact it is because I had this other group saying this was really important. And now, so somehow, so that's what I'm looking for.
The one I heard the most talking about it was Monica.
She's no longer a business owner.
She's no longer doing anything
Did-
with this. She
Did
sold
we
it.
get any information as to what their hurdles are to achieve that? If that's such a big need for them, why aren't they doing it? Is that like,
They are doing it.
They are doing it.
okay,
You've got Beth Eastlack coordinating the
Yeah.
shoulder season shindig.
Right.
They've
The
added.
chamber does that.
Yeah,
That's a
the cha-
chamber
yeah.
event. It's not
And
Beth.
there are, I mean,
Well, she kicked it off years before the chamber
Yeah.
took it over.
I'm just
Yeah.
saying it's a chamber event. I'm on the board of
They
the
do
chamber.
it now, yep.
and there are some other events that have kind of come and gone, you know, that the snowmobile group had, you know, tried an event up at the airport. That has since been backed out, you know, it's.
So I guess what I think we need to find is the balance of what we need to include in the plan versus what we're dictating in the plan. And I
Yes.
think that's where we have to say is that it has been discussed that there should be there, but some folks feel there should be more stuff in the shoulder season. Some folks enjoy their break during the shoulder
Yeah.
season.
yeah, I guess,
So-
Chris, to my point, I think like, what can the town do to help support that? And, you guys already mentioned use of parks and facilities and stuff like that.
Yeah, so I think we could talk about maybe just saying, the town allows 12 months a year use of the park and the facilities with a proper permit. Several nonprofits organize various events and dictate when they do them a year. I mean,
Oh, they are.
if you look at it, like Sugarloaf, they wanted something to happen in May, so they put together a marathon.
Yeah.
There's been talks of doing a marathon here in the fall.
Mhm.
Hasn't come together yet, but I mean, there's some talks out. We talked about doing a marathon around the lake. We talked about doing a bike. The Northeast Gravel Grind, that got spurred by Chris Riley
Mhm.
because there was a need for that. And that's 200 and something riders that come in September now that
Mhm.
didn't exist before. And then, there's some big money that comes in with those and nobody has issue, but that is in the regular season. So I guess my concern is that the last thing I want to do with this plan is to create controversy.
Mhm.
And then the other last thing I want to do is to not acknowledge what people's concerns in there is. But people have been talking since I moved here in 2008 about we need to build up the shoulder season. Much like since 2008 at Saddleback, we've talked about we need to make midweek skiing happen more. Well, guess what?
Yeah.
Both of those are tough because people vacation when they vacation. People make the determines there. It takes special events to get people to come outside of that purview. The eclipse was one of them. When would we have ever seen 20,000 cars
Yeah.
on the 8th of April in downtown Rangeley, Maine? Only because of an event that inspired it. So I just think we need to be careful on how we word that a bit, Donna, to acknowledge the challenges. Maybe to the effect is, some businesses have said they have a lot of challenges during that part, and maybe weave in some of Sam's comments of, trying to do, work on energy costs and those type of things and scheduling and that. And I mean, this new family leave or the family leave option that's come into place, that's added additional expense to employers and employees. There's a number of different things going on. We have no idea what's gonna happen on the national level as to cost of goods. We're seeing already, I saw heating oil, Irving Oil shipping out of Canada is adding a hard.
Yeah. Can I get a word in? When you've finished talking, Chris, can I jump in for a second?
Yeah, sure, Steve, you're on the chamber board. I'm sure you got some input.
Yeah, I'm on the chamber board. I'm on the historic Rangeley board too. And I'm also on the Maine Economic Growth Council. And I came on the call late because I couldn't, the Zoom didn't work. Finally it did, so here I was. And I came in when you were talking about how Rangeley has more restaurants per capita than any other town. And I laughed at that because when I was the executive director of Portland Downtown District, we used to use that point about Portland having more restaurants per capita than any city in the country. And which was a statistic true when I was doing that in 2013 to 15. And one of the things that the argument I used to make about that is that the only reason those restaurants exist is because of visitors. You know, a 1,200 village that Rangeley is, you know, might have a gas station and about it, you know, in many parts of the state. But we have a restaurant culture here because of visitors. The state strategy, state office of tourism strategy, is to expand to a year-round industry, and has been for a lot of years. And the reason that they do that is because it supports full-time jobs, and it draws visitors to periods of time when there's less of them, and spreads out the congestion throughout the year. You know, and of course, I live in Rangeley. I know what it's like here in April, in May, and even November or early November. It's not a time that people necessarily want to be here. That said, you know, businesses could offer specials, not necessarily events. You guys got hung up on events. I think Rangeley Town's got no input in events whatsoever. You know, making the place available for free rental, yeah, it's a minor piece, but it can be mentioned. But that's the extent of events that the town should be involved in. The chamber is almost exclusively driven by events, and you know, the shoulder season shindig that was referred to is basically a way to decompress after the busy season with the people that, you know, have been here working all year. I don't agree with Sam's comments, and incidentally, I almost diametrically opposed to that. That said, I think the idea of taking a break and you know, relaxing during I get that. But I think it's a function of a lack of housing, a lack of year-round residents and employees that causes that to happen, because people work, and I know plenty of people in the restaurant business in this town, trust me. And they work
Yeah, but
there.
Steve,
But let me finish. They work their butts off, and I get that. And they're doing multiple jobs that they really would prefer to employ people to do. And that, you know, they could, and I know some of them will go on vacation in April and shut down, or they could be open if they had staff to be open. But I think we, as doing this 10-year plan, you know, I'm almost ready to surrender this my point of view that I have right here. If it, you know, if others don't agree, that you know, we shouldn't be talking about gas prices in 2025 or you know, tariffs, or, you know, I mean, this is today, this is like now. You know, I think only in terms of projecting 10 years out and what's going to allow this place to survive. I always look history-wise and see how 100 years ago this place was much more vibrant than it is today. Now, what we're talking about here is, I don't even know what. I mean, keeping the status quo for the next 10 years, is that the idea? That's what people want? They don't want any growth. They don't want visitors. I mean, for me, that's a recipe. You either go forward or you go backwards. You don't stay the same. So I, for one, are unhappy with the idea that we would not consider growth over the next 10 years in order to improve the livelihoods of Rangeley residents, and try to attract. And the only way we're going to try to attract year-round residents, I think it's a pipe dream when Sam says stuff about, you know, attracting year-round residents. Yeah, that would be wonderful. But what do? You give them a tax break for 10 years, like you would a business, you know, no property tax for 10 years to move here. The way you get people to want to be here is by having a vibrant place and jobs and that sort of thing. So and I also don't like to keep thinking in terms of what's controversial and stuff like that. I mean, I think we should project out a plan that makes sense for, let's say, moderate growth, let's say an optimistic future. And if we think of everything in terms of, if it gets shot down, it gets shot down. That's the way I would look at it. I say we put the best plan together based on the input we have, based on our smarts and ability to project as far as we can into the future using information that we have from reports and studies and in alignment with the state's plans. The State Office of Tourism is looking for year-round visitation. The 10-year outdoor recreation plan specifically looks at places like Rangeley as a hub to grow that outdoor business for the state. So if we want to go in a different direction and say, no, status quo is fine, let's keep it this way, we don't want to ruffle feathers, then, I'm upset that I would sign on to that because I don't, I'm not gonna, hang myself over this stuff, but I feel compelled to, say those things with some energy behind it because I really don't like that direction. But then again, I'll defer to the committee votes on anything. And but I had to say that because I'm listening to this stuff and I'm just like, wow, it's not really looking strategically into the future like I think we should. So sorry about that.
No, it's fine, Steve. I appreciate your comments. I had a much similar view probably 16, 17 years ago with that stuff. And I'm not knocking at all what you're saying. I mean, I've followed the Office of Tourism stuff for years and the strategies there and those pieces. I think one thing to keep in mind, and again, this is not a knock, is I don't know I know you bought up here in the past few years. I don't know if you spent much time here between 2008 and 2010, 11.
I've been coming to Rangeley for 45 years.
Yeah. So, I mean, you saw what the economy was like in those 3 or 4 years where everything was empty downtown.
I ran Hospitality Maine during the pandemic. I know what happens, when things go south. I remember the 08 period of time too. I was in the travel business that time. I was working for AAA and our business went down the tubes. So I get that. And that may happen 3 years from now somewhere, who knows?
Okay, well, let's get some of the other comments. I appreciate what you had to say. I know Cindy's been waiting and Mark, you guys choose
Okay.
who goes.
Go ahead, Mark. You already had it
Okay,
first.
I just feel that the comprehensive plan shouldn't get too deep into the business end of things. It's an important consideration to the overall thing, but, it shouldn't be a mission statement, for the Chamber of Commerce. I think a simple statement that says business owners will need to be innovative and tailor their business plans so that they work during all seasons, is sufficient, and leave it to their ingenuity. I don't know that we need to try to build some business model for people that want to have their enterprises in range. I don't think that's what a comp plan does.
I don't disagree with that, Mark. You also, I think, I did like the one comment Steve had about being optimistic. I think everyone's agreed on that part, Steve, for sure. So Cindy?
Well, but we've seen growth. I mean, I've lived here since 2001 and the change from then to now, as far as the increased visitor population is immeasurable. And the town has done things to improve that. We've got a tax increment financing plan, which is huge. And we've got the internet, that's the fiber optic internet, another huge matter that the town, addressed. I will agree with Sam on some point, even a discussion about the shoulder seasons, it's like, why? I mean, we've got restaurants that look forward to shutting down and doing renovations, repairs. I don't think we need to get into that level of minutia. I think the town has seen increased and ongoing growth. You don't see the Board of Selectmen nitpicking or rejecting these new event proposals that come to the town. It's more like, all right, well, do you need traffic control? This town historically has just been very open to whatever thoughts, ideas, creativity come to mind. I will say the one thing that has gotten the most negative press is probably food trucks. People that have tried to bring food trucks had, addressing the pedestrian, those that want to stay in the walkable part of Rangeley and Aquasic, that has not been welcomed.
Yeah, that's getting the most pushback. I agree.
Yeah, that, you know, but I think wherever we were at with the prior comp plan regarding the commentary for business has worked out really well.
Donna, does that give you enough to kind of work that? I think Steve's big point about optimism, I don't think anyone disagrees that
Right.
you need to have an optimistic tone. But I guess the question is how deep do we get into the weeds as to business operation and solar seasons and all that, other than identifying that there are shoulder seasons?
Yeah. So here's what I would like to do. Joe, what I sent you today, please don't send it out.
Already had that thought.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And instead I will just tone it right down. And yes, I have plenty of notes, and I think it's try to strike a balance, but and I agree, it's not there really isn't a place for the town to get involved, but for maybe a little bit of, I don't know, funding that it might give to the chamber on a yearly basis, and keeping the parks and, all of that stuff available. So let me take a shot at that. I don't want to, it's important and we got to get it right. And then we'll send it, and then I'll send it out to the committee instead. And then once the committee agrees on it, then it will go to the Board of Selectmen, because I think it's too early, given your comments also.
I
Does that
agree,
sound
Don.
okay?
Yes.
Steve, are you okay with that?
Yeah, definitely.
I want to try to work towards consensus. Cindy, you got one more comment? Carl, did you have any comments? Because I didn't hear from you. I can't tell if you raised your hand. Just let Joe know.
So I just want to follow up. The town also purchased Depot Street, for parking.
Right.
The town expanded parking in the Lake Street and the Park Street area to accommodate and encourage downtown activity. The town has done a lot.
Yeah,
And
but
we
one thing,
did a lot on this last comprehensive plan. I know people like to slam it and say nothing got done. We got a lot done.
I
It may have been
I
slow
don't think
start,
anybody would, I don't know of
but not
anybody
while I
that
was
slammed
on.
it. And I don't know why it even matters what was done in the past, because we really are talking about the future. What's the next Depot Street that the town's going to buy or not? The past is irrelevant at this point. It's more about what's going to happen in the
by your
next 10
comment
years.
on that, Steve.
Yeah.
I'm
What's that?
confused on your comment on that, because 15 minutes ago, you were saying, we need to look at the historical past.
No.
Yeah.
I was talking about 100 years ago. No,
Yeah, but I
not during
think-
the next comp plan, the last comp
Yeah, but I
plan.
think one of the things we talked about when we originally started with the comp plan was to look at what things have been in the plan for 10 years that have not moved, and do they still need to be in there, or are they just never gonna move? We talked about.
Whatever.
What do you mean, whatever?
I surrender. Do it however you want to approach it. I just don't like to look backwards over the last plan because it's irrelevant. We're really trying to project 10 years out, not what the town has done in the past, which is good things. I mean, fiber optic is huge. Parking in downtown is needed, and it's great. But what are we going to need going forward? Maybe nothing. If we don't grow, then maybe we've done all we need to do, and we can maintain this place the way it is, frozen in time. Maybe that's what we want.
So, Steve, my point in bringing it up was to show support for what you had said earlier, okay? Yes, we need to look forward, okay? But to identify the town's role in that would be what I just discussed, okay? And like you just said, maybe there'll be a new Depot Street that comes up, but we can use what the town has done in the recent years as an example of what the town's role is going forward, that we value The town values growth. The town values the downtowns. I think the biggest issue, Steve, I think you've already touched on it, is year-round employees. How do we help make that happen? And I've already touched on that. That's.
Yeah, I mean, I think identifying some of the key projects that have helped move us in the right direction, like one of the big ones that Steve, you might not be aware of, is that they changed, instead of diagonal parking, we did side parking, which freed up a lot of pedestrian versus vehicle problems. They got creative, because I remember when they did, I was like, this is crazy, we're gonna do it. And we only lost, what, 3 spaces or 4
It
spaces?
improves the walkability of the town.
It did,
And
it changed the whole feel of
Yeah.
downtown.
It kept people walking Main Street and going
And
into
I think,
stores.
I think we keep moving in that directions. I mean, I don't think there's anybody who disagrees that tourism is the biggest driver of the economy. And the question is, that comes up, and, you know, they deal with this in all sorts of municipalities, is like what Sam said, are we getting to a tipping point on our resources or not? And that's where I think the comp plan has to be proactive, like what Steve's saying, and say, we've got to build it because it's rolling in that direction. The state's pushing the outdoor recreation part, that whole plan with Jeff McCabe and that whole crew. I went to that summit, and, you know, that's a huge bit of tourism. And that also isn't just the 5 weeks of the summer and the 5 weeks of the winter. That's year round. That's where people come 6, 8, 10, 12, 14 times a year, you know? We don't have a place strategically for people to park their Mercedes $150,000 renovated camper vans, right?
Well, the point is, and I agree with stuff Cindy's saying about, you know, what's been done and also the role, or the role that the town plays versus the role that private business plays. And, you know, I agree that, you know, getting into too much minutia on shoulder seasons and things like that are not things we really should put in the plan. I think Cindy was making those points, which I do agree with. I think, you know, when I hear things like tipping point, you know, buzzwords like that, I say, what the hell's a tipping point? What does that even mean? You know, I mean, if you are at a tipping point, then you have to create an infrastructure that mitigates the tipping point. So you can continue a pathway, you know, not saying we're at a tipping point, therefore stop all this, you know. That's the kind of thing, that's the kind of message I get from her. You know, I am a wordsmith. I listen to things like that and wonder, what is somebody saying when she says that? You know, we know the issues that have to happen to allow growth. And we've talked about a lot around housing, you know, and around creating good jobs, around the strength that is the community's ability to attract visitors. I mean, any way we end up looking at this, we know the outside part of the outsized part of the economy is the visitor industry. You know, I don't even like to use tourism. Tourism to me is an old word. I've always used the visitor industry because much of our visitors are day trippers, and they come and have lunch and they're gone, you know, because they got no place to stay anyhow, because we have no hotels. We have a minimal amount of lodging accommodations, you know. So I just think that, you know, if
Well, yeah, I think what you asked. When you talk about
Let me take a shot at it. I would really, I mean, I don't want to stop the conversation, but I would like to try and get another chapter or two that I could send over to, that we could send over to the BOS. So if we could park this, I mean,
yeah, let's do that. I think the only comment I was gonna make was about the tipping point. Sam could be referencing the book that deals with that. And I don't know if you probably read that too, Steve.
Yeah, I've got
Which
it.
deals with that. It's more about tipping point, not in a negative way, but you get to a certain point and then all of a sudden the cucumber becomes a pickle. You know what I mean? And that's what's, you know, that happened with Vail and some of those other areas, Park City. It's not a negative thing necessarily, but all of a sudden things change. It reaches, we've seen an ebb and a flow, and then all of a sudden you get to a certain concentration or built up level, and it'll never drop below that again. And I think we've reached one of those plateaus, what happened with the three things we talked about, the fiber, the pandemic and Saddleback,
Mhm,
that we just all of a sudden popped to another level, we're never gonna go back to
mhm,
1999
right.
or 2019 even.
Mhm.
So I think all we want to try to do, I agree, a word like that doesn't fit in there. Those were just her comments.
Mhm.
But let's let Donna work that part and let's move on to the other ones for today.
All right. What do you want to work on, Donna?
Well, you want to look at transportation? I think I probably shouldn't say this, but I think transportation's a little benign, just kind of benign, but I could have that all wrong. And I have transportation and public services and capital improvements. So why don't we take a look at transportation? You should have that in your packet.
Yeah.
Let me get that up myself. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at it.
It's so
It's
weird.
very statistical. I mean, it's a lot that we, you know, it's information that, you know, doesn't leave much to interpretation. It's just data.
I pulled out all of the maps, and the maps, there are a lot of maps that go along with
Mhm.
this one. And all of those, you want those for applying for MDOT grants. And all of that data, the high crash locations, all of that stuff is really important in terms of working with MDOT. And so, yeah, so the other thing, there's a lot of references to the downtown revitalization plan. And I really toned that down a lot too. And we just, Tracy helped me a lot with this section in terms of, you know, just putting in the status of those improvements, and then we can just put that plan, we just reference the plan. So anyways,
Yeah, like, I mean, page 11, the recommendations from the downtown revitalization plan. The bicycle piece, I mean, we have had Bike Main, you know, as in town as a stopover. When was that? 4 years ago?
Yeah, something like that.
5,
16,
6,
17.
okay, all
8
right.
years ago, 8 or 9 now,
Yeah.
it's been a while.
And so, you know, for no action on the second bullet point, continue to support
the
regional
regional
cycling
cycling.
interests,
Okay.
coordinate with MDOT, bike, you know, bike lanes have been presented and discussed, and it is an infrastructure challenge that even if there is no actionable plan at this point that will work with the parking, the handicapped accessible sidewalk, and 2 lanes of traffic with logging and water trucks coming through. We've looked at that. I mean, no action.
Yeah, I mean, it almost should come out at this point because there's no way to do it.
There-
And I bike myself all around town. In fact, I usually bike when there's a ton of traffic. You guys have seen me do, that's
Yeah,
during the eclipse, I bike that whole day because it's the quickest way to get around. And
mhm.
is it a little dodgy? Absolutely. Somebody opens their passenger door and stop
Yeah.
traffic,
Yeah.
you're eating pavement, but
I mean,
the
we,
younger kids use the sidewalks and
they do, and people don't like that too much. They like the bikes to stay off, but that has been looked at. I mean, and we do support, yeah, I mean, continue to support regional cycling interests. That's ongoing. I mean, we've taken action with that.
we have a big cycling event that happens every September.
Yeah, I mean, we worked with Bike Maine. We've welcomed them back. I mean, they try to make their way. So I don't know about that one.
Can I add a comment to that? I get it, and this
Yeah.
kind of I think goes with what Steve was saying, though. I get it, we've done it in the past, but shouldn't we continue doing it going forward? Because if there's new opportunities or something that comes up in 7, 8, 9 years that we have no clue about now, wouldn't we want it in the plan that we're still open to it in the future?
I guess my point, yeah, was the fact that there was no action taken on it, but there has been, okay, there has been
Where does it say no action, Cindy?
right after that,
What page?
on page 11, the second bullet down, from recommendations.
What do you think, Cindy, if we just said analyzed instead? And I mean, we don't have to.
What about continue to monitor, or like,
Yeah.
or just like it's
Yeah, I
just
think
something
continue to monitor is
Continue.
way better than no action.
it's
That's
just something
all.
out there. We'll keep an eye on it. If there's
Absolutely.
an opportunity, we'll take advantage of it. If not, we don't. It's just, and I'm sure there's a lot of those out there, right?
Yeah.
We've
Right.
looked
It's
at
in
it.
our-
It doesn't work today. Maybe it will in
Oh,
20
yeah.
years. I don't know.
Yeah, and like the one after that, the sidewalk, streets and that, those are all still done by the town, right? But I mean, I guess we could say,
The one that
Continue to
says, the
monitor
next
as
one that
well.
talks about bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure improvements.
There's like.
continue to monitor, I guess we could say. for those.
There are 3 bicycle, I mean.
In a
yeah,
row.
just-
All
Yeah,
those, and like, yeah, like
that
this,
could all be combined.
like the current street and sidewalk guards during the updates consider requirements. Those were all discussed and everyone was like, "But it's better to have the town consistently do it," and it stayed. So I'd say continue to monitor on that. That way it leaves an opening, like what Steve was talking about and Carl,
Yeah.
that if something else comes along or there's some other grant money that we can do to solve that or whatever, or we decide, the town can no longer afford to have the M60 or whatever. the
Maybe
thing
gas
is.
becomes too expensive and everybody rides bikes every day, and then
Yeah, and
it
everyone's gonna
becomes a
shovel
bike
out
street.
their own sidewalk.
But there are.
My guys already do it some when it's crazy, so.
There's gotta be 5 bullet points in here that include bicycles and.
Yeah.
Maybe consolidate those.
I think it's a great idea to consolidate.
Number 7 kind of does that.
The 7th one down, Mark?
Continually evaluate strategic pedestrian and bicycle infrastructures in association with downtown revitalization plans. So I wonder if there's a way to kind of merge some of these, Donna, into less bullet points.
Yeah, I just wanted to
Yeah,
add,
I mean, they are, it's just taken straight from the downtown revitalization plan, but I can put, I can just change that and then just say recommend, and how about, maybe I could just add condensed at the end of that, because I agree, there are so many, there's all these recommendations and each one means
Very specific.
something slightly different, but not really that much different, that we could just do,
The theme
probably
of it,
that
yeah.
one, continue to support, cycling interests, coordinate with all these different groups,
What if we just said recommendations for the downtown revitalization plan? What if, instead of listing all those in there, we just reference the plan? And just say that, the outlines are out and those continue to monitor and look at ways that are practical to adapt what's been outlined. And then leave all
and
that
then
out.
just see the recommendations in Appendix C.
Yeah, page, we're gonna attach the downtown revitalization plan to this document anyways, right?
We should,
I think we
Yeah.
should.
just.
It's gonna be in the appendix, so I'd say reference
Right.
appendix page 17 of downtown revital and just redact this whole thing because I don't think we
Well,
need to get
that
into
will
all that.
make the whole, because it's not just there. I mean, so I just deleted all of that, but then there's more in terms of trails and more in terms of parking and
Yeah, I mean, if
parking
it's one
ride.
or two, if it's one or two bullet points, Donna, then I'm a fan of leaving in a couple comments there, but if it's like this where there's 20 different bullet points and it's already in the document somewhere else, and we're just, you know,
Well,
we're
that's
not
like,
writing a term paper here that's getting weighed. So I'm just thinking,
10,000 words.
we can reference it. If you think there's a couple key points that need to stay in there, then I say leave a couple bullets and then say, for the full list of recommendations, reference there.
perfect.
If you want to take a couple of the summary ones and leave them, but then I think wherever we reference the downtown revitalization plan, we should pitch it back to where the source document, much like we've done with the state statistics and all of that. Then people can cross-reference it and if they want to dive deeper.
Good, perfect.
Is anyone opposed to that strategy?
No.
Okay. All right. What else did you want to cover on this?
The only other thing is I have this one sentence in here.
Page 15?
And it's talking, and this is in transportation, and it's talking about the Saddleback bus service. And I know this comes from conversations that I've had with the mountain about, they would like to work with the town if possible to expand that service to, do more than just get employees and skiers back and forth from the mountains. So I did say the town could consider working with Saddleback to expand the service using the existing buses in the.
I think
in
the reason they
paragraph.
want that is because Western Maine Transportation said no to them so far. And Sugarloaf uses Western Maine Transportation. They have an agreement with them. And Ride Maine. So, I'm okay if you guys want to leave it in, but I think maybe add a clause that if Western Maine Transportation Services and Ride Maine are unable to help. Because there's other resources out there that,
Right, we want to use
Just-
existing
right,
funded resources.
just a thought.
Okay, so okay to leave that in? All right, so I will make those changes. And do you want to look at it before I hand it over to Joe to give to the BOS?
Transportation section?
I
Yeah,
think it's okay to go.
Yeah.
I had some weird arrows on page 9. I don't know if those are from some other document, they didn't get deleted. In the Rangeley Downtown Revised Action Plan, there's an arrow coming up the first sentence with Rangeley
oh,
and then adopted. So I don't know if that was some other graphic that got deleted and then those two particular objects stayed, so you might want to take them out.
oh, I see them.
And we're not going over typos and that stuff at this point, but
Yeah, I don't know what those are, but let me highlight them. While I'm on that topic, I have someone who has edited and formatted stuff for me for years. And I have handed over the first 4 chapters to her, and she's doing the final cleanup on the language, making sure that there's no stray stuff, that she's a fresh set of eyes, and she also does the formatting too. So, once stuff gets through the BOS and you've heard their comments and you're okay with it, then it's going off to her. So, so I just wanted to let you know that that's happening also.
We have 20
Um,
minutes.
Okay, So are we good on that one?
Yeah, let's keep it moving. And then
Oh.
it would be great once we have those 4 chapters cleaned up to send them back over and we can look for typos and anything else at that point.
Okay, okay.
As
So
soon
the
as,
next,
as soon as we bless the 4 chapters that are done with editing, then they'll get posted on the website.
Sooner the better.
Yeah. Donna, you have a timeline on that?
on when I'll see those back? I can check. No, I don't. I guess we have talked about that, but I was thinking it wouldn't go up until it was in its entirety. But we can put them up piecemeal too.
Yeah.
The next one is public facilities and services and capital improvements. I don't know if you had a chance to look at that. There's, I mean, it does talk about doing an analysis of town buildings, the public safety building and the town office, looking at both the buildings and what their expansion potentials might be, as well as looking at the programming to see what is, what does the programming, what kind of programming is needed in the next, 10 to 12 years. And so, that it does look at expanding public safety, the potential of expanding public safety into the town office, and then also the potential for a community center that also includes the town office. So it's got some big things in there that I want to bring your attention to. It talks about the paramedicine program, which seems to be which seems like it, I don't know, when I read a bit about this, and for rural medicine, it really seems like it something like this could really make a difference in a place like Rangeley. And
You gotta update the MT on page Public Works section.
Donna, the one thing, on page 2, I'd move the
99.
picture of the school out of, public sewer system and down into the education paragraph.
yeah.
I also had a comment on page 2. One was that picture. And then when we're talking of the sewer
Oh,
system plant here, right? It makes a statement here, which in my doings with the town, I've heard the exact opposite. It says infiltration is relatively low, meaning infiltration to the sewer system. So stormwater, other sources of water getting in there. I don't know where that statement came from or if it was fact checked, but I've heard the opposite from folks. So I just, that
What,
caught
the
my eye.
amount of stormwater?
What?
You mean stormwater running into the public system?
Well, yeah, stormwater, groundwater,
There's a ton.
What?
Yeah, it's the opposite. You're right.
Yeah, it's relatively high, as if you read higher, it's the summer flow is much higher than the winter flow. But I don't know why. I've heard it from the operators, I've heard it from doing code enforcement stuff, from dealing with a couple of point users there, that some of their pumpage runs continuously in the spring due to high groundwater tables due to infiltration. So
so the infiltration is coming, so it's like mud season and the water is coming into the system, or it's the other way around?
Yeah, excess water that shouldn't be in the system is going into the system through the pumps up to the fields, being sprayed and treated, even though it's, not a dirty water coming out of a dwelling or a business. It's infiltrating into cracked pipes, holes in basins, manholes. Some of it is private. Now let me some of what I've experienced is there are private sewer systems connected to the public sewer system that has, right, there's no checks and balance to force maintenance, require maintenance, staffing of the sewer plant doesn't allow inspection. So there's it's public-private system. So there's some lines in there. I'm sure I'm blurring talking about this. So it may not be a town problem, but it's affecting a town system.
Yeah, this is the first I'm hearing about it. I talked to them. I was relying on the folks at the plant to tell me what's going on.
Joe, can you verify that with the team?
So the I&I that I'm aware of, infiltration and inflow is caused mostly by sump pumps in the wet season. So there probably is some that's coming through the structures, as Carl said. But the most of it happens when somebody's got a sump pump in their basement. And we know that, or we deduce that because when the power's out for a day or two, you get a rainstorm or something, the levels will come up when the power comes back on to people's houses. So, and plus we know that when we did Allen Street, we tried to facilitate getting those into the stormwater system as opposed to being sanitary sewer. So, maybe that's the takeaway for this, is that we should continue to work on.
Well, what if we did something along the lines as well? Infiltration is perceived to be relatively low. There is a surge due to sump pumps being publicly pumped into it.
And I'm sure there's some that's coming through cracked, pipes and so.
And or cracks.
My experience, my intelligence on it is that it's primarily due to some.
Well, if we can get that clarified before the next
Sure.
piece, that would be great.
Yeah, it's not a big item, but right, if you think about, I just think, right, again, 10 years into the future, if the town is constantly treating excess water, it's extra cost, it's extra wear and tear, it's extra everything. Which if the town does grow or connects more people to sewer, it just becomes worse over time. So that was it. It just caught my eye. So.
All right, well, let me, Joe, I'll talk with you about this later, okay?
That's good.
And I just deleted that picture.
Okay.
Yeah, the school may take offense.
They might take it.
Yeah. These things hop around. I don't know how it happens, but they do hop around, and you make changes and all of a sudden things move. So,
And with the water system, you talked with Al, he agreed that this is all correct?
oh yeah, we talked a while ago, yeah.
Good.
And a lot of that,
We did do
also-
a major project was done last year, which gave us redundancy for water. That was done connecting Richardson Street and Lake House Street. Because the entire part of town was at the will and pleasure of that one bridge by the Frosty, that if that failed and that pipe broke, whole section of town would be out of water.
all right, so, he didn't
So
tell
I
me
just-
about that. That was, to fix, so it added some redundancy to the,
Yeah, we wanted a safety feature redundancy, and we got a grant from
sure.
the federal government for that, so. You should get, I think some of that should be stuck in there, because that's a pretty big significant improvement we did.
and that was, no, I appreciate that. He didn't tell me about it. And that was done in 2023. And where was that, Chris?
2024, it was just done this past year.
Oh,
So I don't know,
okay.
like I said, if you hadn't talked to him in the past year, then you might not have that.
And where was it?
It's on Richardson Street, which is where the Masonic Hall is. And it went across the river. It was supposed to be done in 23, but the water never got low enough to do it for state guidelines. So we did it in 24, and it connects Lake House Street, which is right across from the Rangeley Inn where those two big stone pillars are.
Mm-hmm.
You go down Lake House Street about past the first house, you'll see a swath of trees gone. And that's where that pipe got laid.
Okay, I will, I'll touch base with Al on that.
And I thought we were running 24/7 coverage now, aren't we?
I think the police department section needs to be updated.
Yeah, because the last shift ends at 2 AM. That's not the case, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, that should be updated.
and I thought, and I didn't know if there were.
Because I heard we got an officer on all the time now, right?
This,
And I
this
don't
is
know
right.
if- So the police department, yeah, Joe.
Joe can work with you on that.
Yeah. It says, in recent years, the department has seen an increase of domestic drug and juvenile related calls. Are there statistics to, to relay that would be my question.
It
And
also says peak tourist time, so we gotta get that. Peak visiting, what is it, Steve?
Visitor industry, I don't know.
um,
You
And
can
then
use
I-
them interchangeable.
Well, if we're gonna fix it, let's fix it, right?
and then I didn't know if this last sentence, this expanded 24/7 service would help lower insurance rate. I've heard that for the fire department in reducing ISO ratings. I've never heard it mentioned about the police department.
Me
So
either.
I don't know, I don't think that's accurate.
Okay.
We'll check on that.
Yeah, thank you.
I think that's a little bit of propaganda.
Yeah.
I do know the ISO ratings can change based on,
Based
Certain
on the
things.
fire department, yeah, their checks and balances.
but I've never gotten a benefit of my insurance. Because it's more cops versus less cops.
Um. Yeah, and it's, we just really need to be factual. Yeah, back in the first paragraph, the department will respond to calls outside of Rangeley when the sheriff's department and state police are unavailable. That's only when they're dispatched. This isn't,
We'll get this updated.
Okay.
I think what happened here, and this is not, Tracy was working on this, left on the chief's desk, he had the next day off.
okay,
I went and got it, I didn't realize.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's fine, no problem.
the other thing, so moving on to emergency medical services at the bottom of that page and going on to the beginning of the next page. So at the top of the next page, it says the building and 2 bays are used to park trucks. They're used for ambulances. I think that's an important qualifier. And the last sentence, Rangeley raises approximately $151,300 annually to support North Star. This is actually a contract service. It's not, and Rangeley pays North Star for this contract service. It's not a support. This is a cost.
Correct. Mark,
Back to the police department. I heard late fall that the department was operating 24/7. And I was just curious, is that something that, because at the last budget thing, I think it was a police chief and 2 officers. I'm not 100% sure, but that's what my impression was. 120-hour-a-week police coverage. And this 24/7, is that something that came out of some consensus from public forums or something like that?
no, I think what happened, Mark, is that there was a contract that was offered by the sheriff's department, and that spelled out 3 40-hour things, so they did an apples comparison, but then once they got in place, they did the expanded budget, which was almost $200,000 more. That's what's done there, and if you've been at the meetings lately, there's adjustments being made all the time.
Was that something that the public approved? or
No,
just-
the public approved the budget, which was the 550,000, so I guess the question is that if they're gonna track and budget, and that's the job of the town manager to make sure that they do. And if they don't, then he'll have to deal with that part when they get to the end of the year, right?
Thought the budget was 472,000.
I'll have to double check it, but I thought it was 5 something.
So is the committee wanting this to reflect today, or you wanted to go backwards on this? Talk about what it was 2 years ago?
No, we want to talk about, its references 2024, that there was a chief
Yeah.
added, 3 full-time officers and 5 reserve officers, correct?
I don't think we.
So I would say as of 2025, let's get where we're at.
Yeah,
We got the latest
That's my
information.
question. now.
Yes.
You want some,
No, I don't want to go backwards. I want to, as soon as we print this, it's already dated. So let's get the most dated information. So even if, I would prefer, Joe, you
Currently.
said as of February 2025,
Yeah,
this is where we're at.
So my question is, so is this set in stone? Is that what we have for a police department now?
He's gonna provide us what they have. I don't know, Mark. We haven't been briefed. I haven't been briefed on it. I haven't been at a Board of Selectmen meeting or looked at the payroll roster. So I guess your town manager's here, you can ask that question, but I don't think it's for the format for this particular thing. I'm sure probably ask Joe about it
Well, I
after the
was
fact.
just wondering if that.
No, this
the
is,
description of-
he's already said this description is inaccurate. So let's get the latest
Okay.
one and then we can discuss. If you want to discuss that, then I would suggest you reserve that for your selectmen and
But
fees.
that will answer my question.
Okay, it would be good to have, make sure, yeah, the calls with North Star, that's all updated. I agree with Cindy is that, I would say instead of raises, say Rangeley appropriates
right.
approximately 151,300 as of whatever 24 or 25, Joe, and say per contract.
Mhm.
And then that way we're 100% correct.
Yeah.
And did we talk, is there anything about, I know that the cell tower got updated here a couple of years ago. I don't see that. And their Verizon tower, and then there was also
I
some
think
stuff
it's
done with
in-
AT&T, which is the first net.
The Verizon tower, I thought it was in here at some point, it just. Let's see here. Da, 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 da. Okay,
And Joe, do you also want to mention in the sewer part, I know you guys spent a lot of money. Well-spent money, from what I understand, on updating all the circuitry and systems and monitoring and all that stuff. That was done, because I think,
it's happening now, yeah.
yeah, that's currently, that might be good to have in here. And then, because it says no major extensions to the systems are anticipated, but you may want to talk about that we've upgraded and cleaned up most of that stuff.
Under fire department, these pages aren't numbered, so it's the paragraph before health services, okay? So it's the paragraph that says for, let's see, so at the same time, the town should consider an evaluation of the costs and benefits for services provided by the public safety departments and identification of restructuring options that can provide better services. It's this next sentence that I think should be scrapped. For example, would a town-operated emergency services department be able to more efficiently and effectively provide services than an existing private paramedic company? We used to have our own paramedics that were, Steve Philbrick, you know, he was a former board member, you know, used to speak publicly of this often, and touted that this relationship with North Star far surpasses what the town used to provide for paramedic coverage and services. And frankly, I mean, with the talk of the need for improved and better health services, to sever a tie with Maine Health in providing, you know, the North Star service, I don't know why
Well,
we
I
need
think,
to look at that.
well, I think Cindy, again, going back to some of what everyone's talked about with the forward thinking. Who knows where healthcare is gonna go in the next 10 years? Who knows if there's going to be bigger improvements with private things there that maybe we want to just write is. The town should ongoingly continue to monitor available efficiencies and emergency services or something to that effect. So that way we're saying. True, we have a contracted thing and everything's great and everything works there, but you're only as good as the private company is good. And down the road, we might want to evaluate, we should leave at least an opening there in the plan that by continuing to monitor that and look and continue to look at other things that can pop up.
Then anything contract in this comprehensive plan should be,
Of course, I don't
I mean,
disagree.
or anything that is available. I mean, we in the past, the town has looked at contract services as a way of saving money, yet providing,
Right, and I think what we're saying, what I'm saying is, and I
Good
think I'm trying to go
service.
back to what Steve has said a little bit about is. We don't know where we're gonna be in 7, 8, 10
Mhm.
years.
so
We
the,
may reach a point of, for lack of a better word, we may reach that tipping point where some of these things that we traditionally contracted out to. Might make sense to evaluate to bring them in-house. You know, we looked at. I didn't disagree with the decision, but the select board looked at, we had an opportunity when all our officers left. To contract the services for
and,
public safety.
mhm,
A contract was presented, a budget to do it internally was presented. And even though that other budget was more, they decided based on their evaluation and their understanding of constituency. That it made more sense to go with those services. I think it's important in the comp plan that we leave ourselves the ability to continue to monitor that. To say, for instance, in 5 years, I mean, I know we've got a full police force here, but who knows what the makeup of that is in 5 or 10 years, that we leave the door open where we can
well, then it should
look
be,
at that there.
it should be, then it should be added to the police department section. It's a trend throughout the
I
state.
think you could talk about, I think we could talk about it in general with a number of different places. You wanna redact it here out of the ambulance part, but then we put in a thing and say, we have a number of contracted services, a number of private ones, and we should continue to monitor the
Mhm.
efficiency of it with the lead of the board. We could put that as a consider
Mhm.
stipend at the end and clarify it. Does that make sense, Donna?
Okay, you just put it at the end of public safety.
Yeah, and I think
Yes.
what Cindy's saying is probably redact that, for example. I don't
Yeah,
know if we need,
yeah,
I don't know if we need a for example.
I don't,
Let's just redact that out and then let's put in there, let's continue to monitor whether it makes sense to have these services in-house or contract out.
mhm,
That can apply to anything, police, fire,
yeah.
paramedic, transportation.
The other paragraph I questioned whether it should be
Town
strong
services.
is, under administration. The last paragraph, the town meeting form of government can be cumbersome, blah, blah, blah. I don't even know why that's in there.
oh, yeah,
Council manager form of government, it's, I mean, where is that coming from? What? Anyway,
yeah,
I would suggest striking that last paragraph.
that is easy
Did
enough
that
to
come-
do.
Where did that come from?
Oh, that was me, and I was looking at just all that we had to do to meet, you have a March 1st deadline for a June meeting.
I
Saying,
understand, yep,
so
understand what
I
you're
don't
saying
have a
with that.
problem at all. That is not, I don't need to fall on that sword.
Yeah, and I think we just, I mean. The one thing that is cumbersome, that is logical to be looked at. Like, if we ever go down that road, council versus selectmen is. The prime reason I pushed back on the whole short-term rental thing was because just like that and the marijuana ordinances is. Once they're approved, it takes months to look at doing something different versus. Ordinances that are reviewed on a council level can be changed at the next meeting, very simple, and a lot of our quote unquote competing tourism towns such as Bar Harbor,
Mhm.
Booth Bay, they operate on a town council thing that allows them to be quick and nimble to deal with the challenges that are out there. I'm not saying we get into a big debate whether Board of Selectmen versus there, but I can tell you, you know,
Get it.
depends on the year, what people think, and depends on the person you talk to on how good things are going.
Yeah.
So I think we're almost out of time here,
Yeah,
aren't
we
we?
are.
Yeah.
Well, do we leave it in or take it out?
Take it out.
We're taking it out? Okay.
Yeah, and I think, I think it would be good though, when we go to section where we deal with some stuff with ordinances that we do put in and say. Just discuss our process versus a council process, so that it's in there if someone wants to change their mind down the road. Again, we're
Yeah,
talking
I mean,
8 to
we're
10 years.
talking-
you know, if we grow to a 2,000 person town, we might want to consider. it.
Maybe.
So. Okay, is that, Joe, you're gonna update the equipment stuff, right?
Quick thing that I'd like to add on the paragraph about evaluating services. I think North Star is great. I don't have any issue with it, but I think this is in there because we hear from time to time concerns about time to get out the door and things like that. Again, I don't have any issue with that. I think it's a good service. But this was a reflection of things that I've heard over the last couple of years about folks wanting to evaluate that. So that's, when talking with Don, I want to make sure that that was at least there for your consideration.
Yeah, I mean, why don't we, when we talk about, you know, could we do that? Could we do that in the intro paragraph or something to that effect that says, any services that we contract or handle in-house should be continued to be monitored and evaluated. And then that leaves it open for you to, you want to set up your own evaluation process for the contract services, it'll be within your power to do so.
Mhm.
I just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, and you're gonna fix the public service equipment stuff,
Yeah, that schedule's wrong.
the MT is off, yeah,
And I
1999.
didn't know under expenditures, this 2024 column just seems a little off. So just to, and yeah, that just, anyway, it just seems a little off. Got some,
Well, there's a typo in 2020, it says 71 million instead of 7.156 million.
yeah, so just a look at that.
East Road here.
And excise
Which
tax,
chart is that?
This is,
well, that's the chart that's in the fiscal capacity and capital investment plan.
Yeah, yeah.
And then it shows some weird, the property taxes show 71 million for 2020. And then the excise taxes seem all over the place because it shows 298,000 for 2015. And I know we collect almost a $500,000. That only shows 49,000 for 2024. So maybe that's 491. So that whole
All right.
chart should be reviewed.
All right.
Mark, you had something.
I like your suggestion about, leaving that open to evaluating contract situations. But just as a point, on Cindy's question about, mention of Steve Philbrick and the ambulance, I was on the board when that transferred, and we are just getting to the 50% cost of what we used to have to raise for ambulance services 20 years ago.
Yeah, so it tells you that made sense.
And it's up considerably this year, because of a shortfall. For the hospital.
Right.
Right, we're just getting 50%, we used to have to raise it 300,000, we're just getting up to 151 now after 20 years.
All right, well, we said we'd end at 6:30. Do people want to keep going a little bit more and cover, Steve's got the update on the intro and do.
No, I have no update on that. We're gonna go back to the drawing board a little bit on that. Gary got over-focused on history, the way he was doing it, because that's what he does naturally. But I've got some more data from Donna that she forwards to me, so I'll get together with him and try to get him to. I mean, I think it's important. It's good to have him do the intro because so many people know
I think
him.
it's a great idea.
So we just
Yeah.
got to get the right language in there. So I'll work with him on that.
The transportation and this public services and capital, fiscal capacity, with those changes, are you comfortable with that going to the BOS?
This is public facilities and service.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite a few changes.
Quite a few changes.
You got them all?
I want
Can we get
to
one
review it.
more shot at it? Can you email it to us once
Yeah.
you've done it and then give us 72 hours to respond or something?
Mhm.
Okay, and we'll just do it by email? Is that what you
Yeah,
want
because I
to
want to keep it moving.
Yeah.
do? Okay, and then, are we okay for next Tuesday doing this again? Because it's a lot of fun.
I can't do next Tuesday.
There's a budget meeting.
You want to do Wednesday?
Carl, you're still here. Did you have anything? You gotta go, you said?
Yeah, I got 1 minute. I can't do next Wednesday.
I can't do this
Email is
Wednesday
honestly
either.
the best way for me to review this stuff and provide comments.
Want to do
Yeah, Donna,
Thursday?
the next 3 weeks are pretty tough. That's why
Okay,
we want to meet today.
if we don't stay on this schedule, then we won't be able to meet that deadline.
Mhm.
I'm.
So what do we
I'm
need? One
doing-
more meeting?
What's that?
We need one more meeting?
That would get us, that would get you having then reviewed every chapter, because we still haven't talked about the vision. But that would get you having seen all of the chapters.
Well, I say we still just send them a long email and then we'll just have to figure out a time where we have to do a quick up connect, but it's gonna be tough. Vacation week's a tough week for that. And,
Well, I'll send them to you and we'll see, and if we, if we can meet the deadline, we can meet the deadline. If we can't, I guess we can't. What,
well, we said we'd evaluate when we got closer, so yeah, we're getting closer, so.
Yep.
Next week I'm jammed, the 11th and 12th, I have stuff both nights.
Monday.
13th.
The
Thursday, the
13th,
13th.
I can do the 13th.
I
5
can.
o'clock?
Carl, are you still there? Can you do the 13th?
That's probably my best bet next week.
Okay, what time?
Fine with me.
What's Joe on a schedule? You got nothing's on the 13th, so let's say 5 o'clock,
Yep, let's do it.
Okay,
5 to 6:30.
okay.
Yeah.
Good discussion today. It's,
We're getting there.
I like it. You know, I know it's tough sometimes. We don't all agree, but I think we're getting there.
Oh, yeah, no, we
Thank
don't
you.
have to agree all the time.
No, we don't. It's fine.
No.
It's,
All right, guys, I do have to run. Have a good night, everybody.
All right, thank you, everybody.
Okay, the
All right,
13th.
see you guys.
All right, thanks, everyone.
When these chapters start getting released to the public, I think they ought to be given adequate time to, not everybody's gonna be able to.
Well, Mark, our deadline on March 1st is so that we can meet the public hearing, which has to be April 1st. So they're gonna have 30 full days to review.
Yeah.
Which I think even the slowest reader at a 4th grade level should be able to get through in 30 days if they're diligent about it. But yeah, that's maybe the part you didn't catch. We set an internal deadline on March 1st, so we could give the public 30 days.
Joe,
Yes.
did we not already do, so this is the public facilities and service, this action chart. Develop an assessment of the need, serve area, costs, and institutional arrangements of a community sewerage system to serve the densely developed area of Quasic. Didn't Wright Pierce already analyze that and the cost was?
No, they gave us a quote.
They gave us a
To analyze it, which is about 25,000.
There hasn't been an official analysis.
No, it hasn't been an appetite of.
Yeah,
any elected body that I work with.
I just. There are just some things that aren't possible.
Okay, anything else at this time? We lost Steve and John, so okay, let's
Be adjourned.